So we'll discuss some Minyani Masiv HaRuach and Morid HaGeshem and some Talamatar, and we'll see from there. So on Shmini Atzeres Musaf, we began to say Masiv HaRuach and Morid HaGeshem. Depending if you daven in a Sephardi shul or an Ashkenaz shul, whether you actually started on Musaf of Shemini Atzeres, or you didn't start it until Mincha. What's the reason for the different minhagim? Like, why does one start on Musaf and one start at Mincha? That's just a pragmatic issue because it's a halacha of a hachraza. You make an announcement that it's time to say it. So Ashkenaz don't say anything during the rest of the year, but Sephardim always say something, even if they're not saying. They say Morid HaTal, if not Morid HaGeshem. So by Ashkenaz it's easy. You get up and give a clap and say Masiv HaRuach Morid HaGeshem. But you're not going to get up, even though I think Sephardi could do that also. But they say you don't want to get up. You're not going to say don't say Morid HaTal anymore. So therefore they go ahead and they wait already to we have a different minhagim, but that's, the bottom line is on Shemini Atzeres Musaf Mincha we begin saying Masiv HaRuach Morid HaGeshem. And in fact, that's one halacha of Masiv HaRuach, of the Gvura, as the Gemara calls it, Maskirin Gvuras Keshamim B'tchias HaMeisim, the Gemara in Tainis, that we mentioned Masiv HaRuach Morid HaGeshem. We mentioned the bracha of the second bracha Shmona Esrei of Mechaya HaMeisim. In contrast to something actually in Eretz Yisrael they already started, the saying Tal U'Mata L'Vracha, that we don't mention until Baruch Aleinu in the middle section. So, because there's a fundamental difference between Masiv HaRuach and Morid HaGeshem and saying the same Tal U'Matar. One is Maskirin Gvuras Keshamim, one is She'elas Keshamim. What it means is as follows. There are three sections to Shmona Esrei. And we have the first three brachas are always the same, that's Shevach. The last three brachas are always the same. Hoda, that's 354 days a year, in a leap year 383, in a solar year 365. They never change. The first three brachas are always the same, the last three. The middle brachas change depending if it's Shabbos, Yantiv, etc. But in a normal Shemona Esrei during the week, we have the Bakasha section. So it's split up. So therefore, why is Masiv HaRuach Morid HaGeshem in the Shevach section? And why is Ta'ul Matar in the Bakasha? Because that's what it is. Masiv HaRuach, with its praising God on the ability for God to be able to give rain. But and we're not actually asking for it yet. And we're not asking for the rain until we're saying Ta'ul Matar. And we see the Gemara says it's okay to start praising God. You can praise God for the rain all year round, but you want to, it's more like a preparation. You do it a little bit before the time of the rain. And that's why, in fact, why is it put in the bracha of Tchias HaMeisim? Because the famous Chazal tell us that three things go nimsru l'shliach. Three things God did not give over for a messenger, normally, there with a couple exceptions, but basically he does it himself. And that is rain, the key, the mafteach of rain, of childbirth, and of Tchias HaMeisim. So since the common theme is all life, because if we didn't have any rain to work the plants and everything, there wouldn't be any food, we'd all die of famine. And therefore, like we had, like we had by Yosef, because Yosef was able to save, and that's why, in fact, that's why the Daz the Kedem of Alitosis points out something very interesting. There are two people who are known as tzaddik. I mean, there are many tzaddikim throughout Jewish history, but for some reason, two people have taken on the name tzaddik. Well, Noach, the Torah tells us, Noach is tzaddik, even though the Medrash says he started off in Ish tzaddik, he ended up in Ish Adama. That's a separate shir. But he was an Ish tzaddik, and you get into the different Midrashim in terms of his place in Jewish history among the greats. Was he a Hall of Famer? He's in Avram's League. That's a separate discussion in the Midrashim. But he was known as Tzaddik, and Yosef was known as Yosef HaTzaddik. So why, the Das Kingdom Balitosis asks, why are these two? What happened to Moshe Rabbeinu? What, there are a lot of other greats out there. Well, how come they don't get the phrase Tzaddik? So the Das Kingdom says because a Tzaddik is someone who sustains the world, someone who has the ability to keep the world going. So Noah, the world was destroyed, and Noah came out of the ark and he rebuilt the world. And Yosef, with the famine, he was smart enough to put away the food, and people come, and he sustained the world during all those years when people would have died. How do we know that someone who sustains the world is called a tzaddik? We established they both sustain the world, but how do we know that's true? So we say it 3 times a day in davening. Poseach eshodecha, we're talking about God, of course. Poseach eshodecha umaspia l'chol charatzon, you open up your hands and you sustain all human beings. Tzaddik Hashem b'chol, to God you're a tzaddik. So therefore, Noach and Yosef have that name attached to them because there's someone who, like God, umaspia l'chol charatzon, they were in that circumstance to go ahead and thank and be able to save the world. You know, and along those lines, that's what Hakaras HaTov is all about, the whole world. Bishvil Rashis, the first Rashi in Chumash, that because of the Jewish people, the Torah, God created the world. And in fact, that's what we just read this past week in Lech Lecha. That we know the story with the 4 kings and the 5 kings at the end. Then Melchizedek wanted to thank Avram and give him everything. And Avram said, no, I don't want anything, but as the Chafetz Chaim pointed out, we see, but for other people, he said, you can have it, I'm not taking, because don't be a tzaddik at someone else's expense. You want to take on chumras, it's your job, don't be machmer for everyone else. So he said, he didn't want anything. So we have a tradition that Melchizedek gave the kahuna to Avram was a Kohen, whatever that means exactly. But Melchizedek, Chazal tell us was a Kohen also. So, and he lost his kahuna. Melchizedek was punished. What did he do wrong? So we read in last week's parsha that he thanked Abraham first for winning the war, and then afterwards he thanked HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he said, you always have to thank God, and first, and that's why the minhag, I was just at a chasana in a bunch of Toronto people, because of J.K. Mueller, and whatever, someone, he was in Toronto for a while, it was in Montreal, the wedding. So, different minhagim, when you walk down, so there's different songs they sing, Miyadir, so if you pay attention to the words, the first song is thanking God for everything, and then you can praise to the chassid and kala. That's what the post can point out. A lot of people make a mistake out of simcha. They first say l'chaim, and afterwards, okay, then they go ahead and make the bracha. So the post can point out, based on this, that first you make the bracha, whatever you're drinking, shahakol niyabidvaro. It was funny because someone once says they thought the rabbi was saying, make a shahakol, say l'chaim, and then drink. No, that's more problematic. But you have to make the shahakol, you drink, and then you say the l'chaim, because we see first it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then then we thank man. So that's what we have. So that's what Noach and Yosef did, and that's why over here we make it in the bracha of Tchias HaMeis, in the bracha of Shevach. It's a praise. It's talking about the greatness of God. So that's Masiv HaRuach. And Talomata Sheila. When we ask the Sheila, that's not until later on to Baruch later, the Bakasha section. So there's an interesting minhag of the Maram Rutenberg, and it's brought down. The Torah brings it down in Kuf Yadal, maybe even Shulchan Aruch, about, we know the halacha is, before I tell you what is minhag, you just have to know some basics. The halacha is that what happens if you forget to say Masiv HaRuach or Morid HaGeshem? If you forget to say it. So if you forget to say it, so it depends when you forget. Well, it doesn't make it. If you forget to say it and you forgot to say it, you have to repeat Shmon Esrei. Whether Shacharis, Mincha, or Myra. The question is, what if you're misupik? I'm not sure. Many times we're not sure, because but people don't remember if they made the bracha Ravino either. But I guess it's only an issue if they forgot Masiv HaRuach. But a lot of times when we're misupik, we're not sure if we remember davening the other brachas, we're not sure about Masiv HaRuach. So what should you do? So that we have a Chazal tells we have a rule based on Yerushalmi that we say we work with the principle of chazaka. In general, we keep the status quo. We shtel the chazaka, as they say. And basically, we always go. We assume we're creatures of habit. We do what we normally do. So therefore, whatever your habit is. So 30 days is the time. It could have been 20 days. They picked 30 days. They came up with that time. They assessed, and 30 days is the time which creates the habit. So after 30 days, and presuming it's 3 times a day is really more because we have a Rosh Chodesh in there, a Shabbos. Some say it's like 100, 101, but we'll just go with 90 anyway. 90 times you create the chazaka. So what happens if you're not sure? So within the first 30 days, the halacha is you have to go back because we assume you still haven't created your habit yet, and therefore you probably did not say it, and therefore you have to repeat. But after 30 days, are we there yet? After 30 days, then you can keep on going. And if you know you missed it, you got to go back. But if you're not sure, then you can assume you did say it. So comes along the Maram Rumberg and says, have an idea, have an eitzah for those people who are unsure, or people who are mesupik to avoid the issue. You know what you could do? And that was the meaning. Some have a meaning in different yeshivas. They sing it in a song. They do some words before, some words after. They sing etc. They go sing a line or two. You can't just say Masiv HaRuach and Morid HaGeshem 90 or 100 times in a vacuum. It's meaningless. It has to be in the context. It's not meaningless, but it's not going to help you create a habit. You have to say it in the context of the Shemon Esrei. So whatever is considered enough. And that was a song they used to sing. I guess it's Miras. I guess they waited to after that lunch, after Musaf, unless and they started or Mincha whenever they did it, and they sang it 100 times. So the Maram Rumberg says if you do this for 90 times, 100 times, whichever amount is, he says you don't have to then, if you're not sure, if you forget, you still have to go back. But if you're mesupik, you don't have to go back. So where does he get this from? Where does he get that if you do it? We know the 30 days times 3, 4. That's accepted. That's brought down. But where does he get that if I do it 90 times in one day, that's just as good as doing it 3 times a day for 30 days. So they quote an interesting Gemara in Baba Kama, Chaf Daled, Chavav. Very interesting. One would think it's the last thing you're thinking about when you're learning this Gemara. This is where the Maram Rumberg gets it from. It's a Gemara about shor, ox goring, what they call a shor ha-moed and shor ha-tam. The shor, an ox that gores irregularly, so therefore it's not the owner wasn't aware of this tendency. So he's responsible, but he only has to pay chatzi nezek. He has limited punishment he has to pay, but he pays less. But your animal is a psycho, he's running around all the time, attacking people, attacking animals. So therefore you're a shor muad, you should have watched him better, and therefore you have to pay nezek sholem. So a shor muad is after it gores 3 times. So they point out that comes along. So the Gemara quotes from Midmol Shilsham, the pasuk in Parashas Mishpatim, my Mitzvah Parsha, that they learn out the 3 consecutive days. You gore, so gets into how you become a shor muad. So there's an opinion in the Gemara, there's a Rabbi May, I'm not sure, I forget, there's another opinion in the Gemara that says, if you become a shor muad by goring 3 times in 3 consecutive days, if richok nigochos, if 3 separate days you gored 1 time, it creates a chazaka, how much more so, kirov nigochos go kol shachein, how much more so 3 in 1 day? What better pattern than that? Of course, one could just say he's having a bad day. Maybe you can't, I know people have bad days also. But either way, that's what we'll see. We don't paskin like him, but that's what he said. So apparently they say the Maram is getting it from him. That we see that that he went from 3 times in 3 days is a chazaka. How much more so 3 times in 1 day? So if over 30 days you do it 90 times, how much more so 90 times in 1 day? So that's what people quote the Maram Rumberg. Rabbeinu Peretz disagrees and says that's not true. He's cholek on the Maram Rumberg. For number one, he says having a bad day, you can't, it's not a raya. In other words, it's more of a pattern. If you have to wait and see 3 separate days, doing it all in one day, it could be something else. And secondly, the Yehuda, others ask, like, what do you mean? The Gemara, we don't paskin, we paskin when it comes to shor muad. You're not a shor muad 3 times in one day. We say you're just having a bad day. We paskin, you need 3 separate days. So how can we? And yet we do paskin like the Maram of Rumberg against Rabbeinu Peretz by Masiv HaRuach. So number one is, even if he gets it from that Gemara, it sounds like a nice Gemara, but it's against the way we paskin. So how do we reconcile our psak by Masiv HaRuach that we do seem to accept it, and yet by shor muad we don't? So there are 2 basic approaches. One is the Ran. The Ran in different places, he wants to say, there's a Gemara in different places about how many times creates a chazakah. It's a general question. How many times does something how many times does the event have to be repeated to create a chazakah? So Rabbi, I believe, says Trei Zimnei. Rabbi is the opinion who says if you do something 2 times, that creates a chazakah. And we have Rabbi Gamliel who says 3 times creates a chazakah. So basically the Mefarshim point out that really, so what is it? Is it 2 times and 3 times? Because as we'll see, because let's say for instance, what do we see 2 times? So there's we've been reading about Mila in the parasha last week, a continuation to this week with Avram in the beginning of the parasha. He's recovering from his Mila, from his circumcision, his operation. So there's a halacha by Mila that Meso Achiv Machmas Mila, that we know that every Jew is chayev in, every male is chayev on the 8th day, a Mila Bisman, etc. However, the Gemara talks about what happens if you did a Mila on someone and you were hemophiliac, he died. You do it on the 2nd son, he dies. So when it comes to the 3rd son, we say Trei Zimnei Chazaka. You don't have to try it on the 3rd one. He doesn't do a Mila. It's an interesting discussion. How do we regard this person? This child is, let's say he's a Kohen. So he's not getting a Mila. If you don't have a Mila, you're an Aro. An Aro can't eat Truma. So to see if the status of an Aro or not. Because someone who willfully doesn't do a Mila, that's one thing. There's interesting machlokas in the Rishonim. Many Rishonim write he still has the status of an Aro. And he can't eat the Truma, which was probably the way we paskin. And this interesting sheet of Rabbeinu Tam, who I like in Lumdis anyway, he writes, no, he's not an Aro. Because that fits into that's where probably the Brisker Rav got it from. The Brisker Rav, there's a famous kasha, not only him, but in fact I didn't go through more, but I was opening up a sefer on Mila, and there's someone called like 15 answers on this question. But the question the Brisker Rav asked, or many people ask, is, we know we have a tradition, the Avos kept the Torah before it was given. And let's talk about Avram. The Gemara tells us in Yuma, Daf Chav Ches, that Avram was Makayim Kol Torah Kuo even before. And the Gemara says, Afilu Eruve Tavshilin. He even kept, we were busy this year. Next year also, it's the same thing. We're going to have, it must have been a year, he must have been born on those Thursday and Fridays, but he kept Erev Tavshilin. So Pashas, what's Erev Tavshilin? It's just an example of a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. But the Mefarshim point out this interesting anyway, why it's more than just that. Erev Tavshilin is kind of you prepare food for guests. What's the yesod of Avraham Avinu was Hachnasas Archam and guests, so it fits in well, at least why they use Erev Tavshilin. He was very concerned about getting that food cooked, or telling Sarah how to cook it, like he tells her in this week's parsha. But either way, so they point out that, so the question is, if Avram kept Kol Torah Kuo, so before it was given, so what about Mila then? Why did he wait for a commandment on Mila? So the simple pshat is, they heard from this and Alper and others say is, by definition, a bris, a covenant, a peace treaty, you need 2 sides. If one side is going to make peace, not the other, it's not a peace treaty, as we know, unfortunately, from Jewish history. But you need any covenant, you need 2 people. So what am I going to make a bris with myself? it's meaningless. So that's why Avram, so there's nothing to do before. Others say that there was no mitzvah, by other mitzvahs there's no downside. But there's an Isser for Ben Noach. Again, that's a whole discussion of the status of the Avos. Before the Torah, if they had a status of B'nai Noach, or they had a status of a Jew or not, that's a separate discussion. But there was an Isser of Chavala. So if there's no mitzvah Milah, there's a biblical prohibition to injure yourself. I can't cut my finger. So that's why he couldn't, here there's a downside, he couldn't go ahead and do a Milah without being commanded, or else he could be in violation of an Isser. By putting on talis, tefillin, or whatever he did, that wasn't a problem. So that's the second. The third answer is the famous answer of the Maral Diskin, the Vilna Gaon, about, we know we have a principle in the Gemara Kedushin, Gado ha-mitzuva v'yosa misha'ena mitzuva v'yosa. Greater is the one who is commanded than the one who wasn't. In other words, Pashas, this principle seems counterintuitive. Would you want your kids to do something, throw out the garbage before you tell them, or is it better that they wait till you tell them and they take it out? So what Tosas points out, what it means is, of course it's a certain level, but volunteering is a higher level. But what Tosas says the Gemara means here is, Gadol HaMitzvah, we know it's much harder to go ahead and do something when you have to do it. I always give an example, and go back in the camp days. So let's say you're in Cold War, and you're on the team, whatever, you're on staff, but you're taking this lunch break, and then there's a game afterwards. You take a sleep during nap time, and you wake up at 2:15, and I'm supposed to be at the baseball field at 2. So you run to the baseball field, you get there huffing and puffing, and you forgot to find out, well, what am I doing? Am I playing? Am I umpire? Am I like third base coach? And you're all worried about, like, what should I be doing? But the other person, let's say the same guy, day off, decides instead of going out, he just hangs out in camp, and he wanders off to the baseball field, and he's sitting there relaxed. Okay, I'll play, I won't play, I'll soak in some sun. The bottom line is, it's much harder to do something, Tosas points out, when you have to do. The Yetzer Hara is always much stronger. That's why we know it's the whole child reverse psychology. They say, you tell your child the opposite of what you want, because the human nature is, you tell me this, I say I'll do the opposite. Of course, the trick is in chinuch. You're supposed to teach your kids to listen to you. So at what point do you stop to your and no, you really have to listen to your parents, not do the opposite. But that's a separate chinuch question. But either way, so they point out, Gadol ha-mitzuva v'yosa. So the question is, so why did Avram wait? He should have did the mitzvah so that's why he waited. He waited for Milah because he wanted to be commanded. Why not by all other mitzvahs he should have waited? The answer is no, because I could keep Shabbos today, I could keep Shabbos next week. It doesn't take away from my Shabbos. I could put on tefillin today, I could put it on tomorrow. Milah, you only could do once. So therefore, since you only could do that mitzvah once, he wanted to do it on the best way. Gadol ha-mitzuva v'yoseh, misha'ena mitzuva v'yoseh. That's how the Vilna Gaon and the Maral Diskin explain. But the Brisker Rabbi has a very lamdish answer. He says, not that the other ones weren't, but his is, he says as follows, that which one, we know that the issue is, there's a mitzvah of Milah, and you have a chal oshem oro, you have a status of being uncircumcised. That was the big curse word. They used to call you an oro. That was the big rank during those days. You don't want to be an oro. So the Brisker Rav claims, at what point do you become an oro? Of course, physically you're uncircumcised. But he says that's halachically meaningless. You only have the status of an oro. First, what comes first, the chicken and the egg? The mitzvah of Milah creates the status of an oro. If I'm not commanded before the mitzvah of Milah, I might be physically uncircumcised, but I'm not an oro. So that's what he says. Avram couldn't do the Milah. There was no status of oro until the mitzvah of Milah. So he had to wait for Milah. And that's why it fits in, the Meshech Chochmah points out, it fits in very well in the Psukim, because if you look at the Psukim in last week's Parsha, right after he gave them the mitzvah of Milah, Vayipol Avram al panav. So Rashi writes, he felt incomplete, he didn't have a Milah done yet. So what happened? Why did Rashi say this from the beginning of Lech Lecha? This isn't the first time God's talking to Avram, so why now? So it fits in very well. The Meshech Chochmah says, because Up until now, he wasn't an Arol. There was no mitzvah of Milah. It's only the mitzvah of Milah that created the status of an Arol, and therefore now, so that's what the Brisker Rav says, and so that's what Rabbi Tom here seems to be working with. That it's the mitzvah of Milah. So the brother who died machmas, the other brothers who died machmas Milah. So now I'm not going to have a Milah. So he says I don't have a din Arol because I don't have a mitzvah Milah. Could be everyone agrees to the Yisod, but I'm saying the machlokas between Rabbeinu Tam and the other Rishonim is they hold no, you do have a chiyuv Milah. You just an honest, you just can't do it. That's why they consider. In other words, they can agree with the lumdis that maybe everyone agrees it's the mitzvah of Milah that creates the status of Aro. The question is, how do you view this person? Meisu achbak machmas Milah. Rabbi Tam views him as someone who has no mitzvah, but others you could argue the other way. No, you do have a mitzvah Milah for safety reasons. You don't have to risk your life for it, but I'm still chayiv in theory, and hence I'm still an Aro. And where does Rabbi Tam get it from? There's a Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi talks about this as well. About could you anoint a Kohen with Shemen Shel Truma, oil of Truma? So the question the Yerushalmi raised: what about on day 3, third day? Could you anoint? So the Yerushalmi says, yeah, you can anoint a baby Kohen with Shemen Shel Truma. Because there's no, the mitzvah of Milah doesn't start until day 8. So the shaila of the Yerushalmi is, what about the night of day 8? That's what he's mesupik about. Day 8 already, you can't, because I'm chayav the Milah now, so I have the Shem Aro. He's mesupik the Yerushalmi about Leil Shmini. Because on one hand it's day 8, so maybe, how do you view the Leil Shmini? Since you can't do a Milah Balayla, I say, the chiyuv doesn't begin until the next morning? Well, no. Maybe only the chiyuv begins at night. I just practically can't do it. So that's the issue. That's the issue of the Yerushalmi. But that's what it all comes in. The Brisker Rav bases on Rabbeinu Tam bases on the Yerushalmi. This is showed. It's the mitzvah of Milah that creates the status of an Aro, and that's why Avram Avinu had to wait until he was commanded. So whatever pshat you have, that's the example. So the Gemara gives an example. Trei Zimnei. You only only 2 times is a chazaka. Another example of 2 times in the Gemara is a katlanis. I mean, the details are very important, but for our purposes, what a katlanis basically means is that basically a woman married this guy, he died, and we're attributing she'd been marrying him that caused his death, and then he dies, she marries someone else, he dies, etc. Again, there's a lot of details to what it is, but whatever the details are, in the cases we're assumed because she married him, he died because of her, so we say she's a kalanis, and you can't marry a third husband. This question is very relevant now, like in Florida or other places where, like in senior citizens, because many it's very easy to have, does that mean if an 85-year-old marries an 80 and they die, is that really a kalanis or not? Or that's just, so I'm saying a lot of details within the halacha, but whatever the details are, that's another example of 2 times or a chazaka. The Gemara's example of 3 times shor muad is 3 times, and the Gemara gives another example of a veses. Hilchas nida, a woman has certain intervals in terms of a period, so we assume the 3rd time she has davesis, so she knows when to expect and etc., when she has to separate, etc., do bedikas. So we see different Gemaras say 3 times, create a chazaka, and different Gemaras say to which one is. The Ran writes, it's a sveika dedina. Well, halacha, we're not sure. We're misupik. And therefore, so he says we know we have general rules in sveika. We have the principle, safek daraisa l'chumra, a dal by a bilgal was strict, safek darabanan l'kula, and we have halachas of safek pikuach nefesh, etc. Kind of like the Gra writes in Parashas Shoftim, when it talks about going to the basin, so the pasuk says ben dam ledam, ben din ledin, ben nega lenega. So the Vilna Gaon writes, they're all 3. If you have a suffix, you don't know what to do. You go to the basin, so ben dam ledam. So isser v'heter. I got to know if it's mutter. I have to know if it's mutter or usser. if it's us or not, then ben dam ben din l'din, let's say dini mamanos. You claim it's yours, I claim it's mine. Hamotzi mechaveiro lav harayi. The principle is the burden, the one who's holding on to it, the other person has to prove that it's, if you want to take something away, you have to, the burden of proof is on you. And then ben dam ben neged l'neged, the halacha of tuma. There's a halacha about suffik tuma b'rishus harabim tahar, suffik tam b'rishus yachid tami. So you have different columns. So the Ran writes, when it comes to so it's a sveika dedina how we pass it. When it comes to katlonis or mila, suffik pikuach nefesh. So we got maybe 2 times creates a chazaka. I don't know, is it 2 or 3? Oh, I can't take any chances. However, when it comes to, let's say, dini, he toasts others, some assume that is only drabanan, so suffik drabanan v'kula, if it's only 2 times. And also, shor muad, and so they talk about it in terms of the shor muad being, it's a suffix because hamotzi mechaver lav harayi, you want to take money, so it has to happen 3 times if you want that nezik shalim or whatever the case may be. So he goes through it. So the Rabbi basically says it's a sveika dedina how we paskin, and you have to you have to know the klali suffix, and then work through every case separately. That's how and Rabbi will have to say, well, how could Rabbi say 2 times? It's explicit by Shor Amu at 3. He'll claim it's an exception to the rule midmol shulsha based on the psukim, but in general he holds 2 times. That's the Ran. Rav Soloveitchik had a different explanation. He wants to say no, it's not a sveika dedina. Because you have to look at the 2 different cases and different rules. Because in fact, I was pointing, as I started with, I said, there's a machlokas to Maram Rutenberg and Rabbeinu Peretz about whether saying Masiv HaRuach 90 times, let's say in one day, Shmini Atzeres, or it could be any day, but Shmini Atzeres, whether if you're not sure whether you have to repeat again. So Maram Rutenberg says yes, and the Rabbeinu Peretz says no. So he said, where did he get it from? He got it from the Gemara in Baba Kama, that if 3 times in 3 days, and certainly 3 times in 1 day, it creates a chazaka. So Rabbeinu Peretz says, no, you can't learn from that Gemara. So the question is, what is the Nekudas HaMachlokas? What is the actual issue there between Rabbeinu Peretz and the Rabbeinu Yerucham? So the two types of chazaka, we'll use the word, but they use in yeshivas. In yeshivas, is something a siba, a cause, or is it a siman, or it's just a sign? Like for instance, let's say an example. Let's say there's someone, obviously not from someone comes from out of the country somewhere, doesn't know anything how things work. He walks in and he walks into a business, anywhere, a school, and all of a sudden, like at 12 o'clock, the bell rings and everyone just runs out of class, goes to recess. So he's saying, what happened? Like, is it like something caused, like the clock hit 12, that caused a feeling and it had to run out? Oh no, that's just a simon. They knew, nothing to do with it. That's a simon. At 12 o'clock they know it's time, something to do with, even if the clock wasn't there, it's time for lunch. As opposed to, let's say, similar, but you have a fire and the smoke alarm goes off. That goes off because there is a fire. So a siba is like a cause that actually causes the thing to happen. Simon, it's not the cause, but it shows that something's there. So for instance, so what type of chazaka is shor hamuad? So the Mara, remember, word shor hamuad is a siba. That basically you go that every time, like, animals are affected like humans. We're affected by our actions, our environment. So, that's what the NFL is trying to stop. The helmet-to-helmet hits. It's getting too aggressive. Because if you start acting like behemoths, you start becoming them. So you realize you become aggressive. So therefore, every time I do something, it has an impact on me. So each time you do it, and so remember, we say 3 times, that changes your nature. So each time, he writes, the Marama writes, that's a siba. It's because him goring, that's causing him to get the chaloshei moed. And so what about Masiv HaRuach? How does Masiv HaRuach work? It's the same thing. Obviously, it's not a simon. Masiv HaRuach is, I'm trying to create a habit. So by me saying it 190 times, whether it's one day or a third, I'm creating it. So the Maharam compares it to, because he says they can be compared. They're both same type of chazaka, a siba. Apparently, Rabbi Peretz disagrees. He can't disagree on Masiv HaRuach. Everyone has to agree Masiv HaRuach is a siba. But he'll argue no, that when it comes to a shor muad, it's not a siba, it's a siman. In other words, basically, it's not a step-by-step process. It's the third time, retroactively now, we label him, but up until now, we assume he's having a bad day. He's still a good guy. He's still labeled a nice cow or whatever, a nice animal. It's only the third time. Once he does the third time, that gives the status. But it's not a process. For instance, let's say this animal gored twice, and then you sold it. And then the third time he. And then the guy took it and he gored the next day a third time. So if it's a siba, the guy can say, well, you didn't tell me it's a mechach tos. Like you didn't tell me it's a psycho and he's going to go goring. But if it's a siman, I didn't do anything wrong. He was normal. It's only once he came in your property he became crazy. So therefore the Maharam is clearly calling it both a siba. Hence he could compare the two. That's what Rabbi Peretz says he's not. How can you compare? One chazaka is a siba, one's a siman. So the Rav explains similarly. The Rav explains as follows. So it depends for what we do. If we want to just create a habit, so then he says 2 times is enough. If we want to create a pattern, so he's saying, let's say by the case of the kalonis or by the mace, we just wanted to know if there's a pattern here. Okay, 2 kids died, blood. Okay, that's enough of a pattern for me. Or kalonis, you want to say it's going to no, I'm not taking any chances. No one marry her after that. But by shor muad and veset, it's more than just a pattern. It's creating a status of a muad. So the Rabbi explains, what does he know this from? Because there's a Gemara later on about Baba which says, let's say in shor gores, you gores 3 times, you're a shor muad consecutively. So let's say 2 days he kills a shor, or another animal, and then the 3rd day he also kills a shor, but it's a shor shel hefker. It's an ownerless. Nalachit you're not chayiv on an ownerless. You have no one to be chayiv. It doesn't belong to anyone. So the lucky he doesn't become a shor muad. The question is why not? Like, what's the difference if it's just to create a pattern? I don't care whose shor it was. I see it created a pattern. Apparently the Rav says we point out to get a status of a chalo shem shor muad. It has to be a negicha hamachayeves. Has to be. It's not just stam creating it. To create a pattern, 2 is enough. But to create a pattern where there's a chalo shem, it's more. It becomes a status. You have to do that 3 times. So shor muad, it has to be 3 times a negicha hamachayeves. So same thing with the veses. It has to be re'iyaz dam. That is a metame. If you see blood, let's say post childbirth, and let's say it's dam tar, it doesn't affect the veses. Why not? If it's just to create a pattern, then why not? You see, it's more than just a pattern because it has to be something which is metame the woman, or it has to be someone who's chayav. So the Rav says when it comes to stam creating a pattern, that's all you're interested in 2 times. Then we pass in like Rabbi Trey. It's not a suffix in Dina. We know exactly how we pass it. With this creating a pattern, it's 2 times. But if we want to create a status, that takes 3 times, and that's why shor muad and vesis, require the 3rd time. And just to point out, just to conclude, so they point out as well that we said, so we begin saying Masiv HaRuach right away. Yeah, we don't begin, at least in Eretz Yisrael, we don't begin saying Talmud Matar until Zayim Mar Cheshvan, which already happened. But in Israel, and us, so maybe next year we'll get into Talmud Matar, December 4th. So either way, so they point out that, the question is, why do they wait? Why don't we say V'Talmud Matar right after Yantif? We can't say it on Shemini Atzeres because we're davening Yantif and there is no place, we don't do Bakashas. But right after Yantif, the next day, at night, Motzai Yantiv, why don't we start saying Talmud? Why do we wait 15 days? So the Gemara in Tainus discusses it. I think it's Rabbi Gamliel who writes that the reason why we wait 15 days is because Chazal figured out the furthest part from the Beis HaMikdash to get back, for those who are Ola Regel, the furthest spot to get back is in the Har Pras, and they figured it takes 15 days, so we don't want it raining on these people, else they're not going to come in the first place. So therefore we want to get everyone a chance to go back again as before cars and planes and roads, and the horses getting stuck in the mud and getting poured on, so they gave us the time for the last per people to get back. So 15 days, and that's Zayit. Actually, the Machokas in the Gemara, one opinion is Gimel, Cheshvan, you should start saying it, another one is Zayit, the way we passed it. But we are right because of the Ola Rego. So the Shaila is, so what about that? So Bishlom of Bizman, Beis HaMikdash Kayam. That makes sense when we have a Beis HaMikdash. But Bizman Hazeh, post Korban, so then we should begin right away then, because there is no mitzvah of Olarego, so why don't we begin right away? So the Ran writes, he quotes, there's a minig, even though there is no chiyuv today, but there's a minig anyway, he writes, there's more than this, it's an Inyan, one should go to Eretz Yisrael anyway during the Shosh Go. It's not the real mitzvah of Olarego, but there was a prevalent custom even after the Churban, and therefore maybe that's why we still wait. And therefore it's a discussion in many Rishonim write, the Rambam, others, it's a low plug. And even Bizman Hazeh, when there is no mitzvah, we still wait to Zayim Ar Cheshvan. However, other Rishonim, which we don't pass like say, Bizman Hazeh, we should begin right away. There's no reason to wait. So by nafkamina, even though we don't accept, we wait to Zayim Ar Cheshvan, even in Eretz Yisrael, but we don't. That some posts can point out, some bachokas among the postim, but some posts can point out we don't reject this shita completely. What do I mean? I mean is if you're in Eretz Yisrael, and let's say in between Simchas Torah and Zayim Ar Cheshvan, you say Masiv HaRuach and Morid HaGeshem. So some posts can say then you don't have to go back. Normally, if you say Masiv HaRuach in the wrong season, you have to repeat. So even though we don't accept the lechatchila, but some posts can be the evidence accepted if you made a mistake and you said it, it's good enough. Really, you should be saying it now, and in Eretz Yisrael. And in fact, what's interesting that Achronim asked is, what about if we stop the first 15 days? So what about the last 15 days? How about stopping saying it when we have to go back for Pesach? So I'm going to go in the rain. Why don't we stop saying? Masiv HaRuach Talomat 15 days before Pesach? So they say because we're not. So why should we worry about these people instead of Rovatzi? But we could say the same thing. Why do we wait for it in the beginning? So what some Achronim answer is, what's the distinction? Distinction is like this: as really as we pointed out, the Zman of Geshem is really either Gimel, Cheshvan, or Zayin. We pass in Zayin, when based on the Rashi, the reason why, if you normally when you say Masiv HaRuach and HaGeshem in the wrong time, because if you do it in the summer, it's a Siman Kola, because it's ruining all the crops and all that. So they point out that during this time period between Simchas Torah, it's not a Siman Kola, and it's not the Zman. So therefore, the last 15 days before Pesach, it's the time for rain. So because of those people schlepping back and going back, you can't say stop praying for rain for Klal Yisrael because you have those people going, because it's the Zman. But the reason the first 15 days, because it's not really the Zman yet. It's like an in-between period. So it's a rishus. You could mention it, but it's not a Siman Kola. Therefore, they say the first 15. Others point out a more pragmatic reason. They point out because everyone leaves the same time. So you have Rov Klal Yisrael leaving. Everyone's leaving Yerushalayim, the Beis HaMikdash, right after Yontif. But people are coming from all over. So when you're coming to a wedding, people come early, late. Some people leave 15 days before if you're in the Har Pras. So therefore, we're only dealing with more individuals. But that's more of a pragmatic answer. But that's what That's what the poskim point out. Why the bottom line, we don't stop praying for rain. Probably, the best reason probably is because it's the zman of rain, and we can't not pray for rain because some people might get wet. But in the beginning, the zman of rain hasn't started yet, and therefore that's why for the first 15 days they waited. Now in Eretz Yisrael already, they already started Zayim HaRuach. The shaila they have is, the post come talk about what happens if a ben chutzortz goes to Eretz Yisrael now, or the reverse. What do you do? Do you say you go by the minhag hamakam? Do you go by your minhag? So so that's a discussion among the poskim about some say more. A ben's already started. You don't stop, but we didn't start yet. So some poskim make a pshara that basically is you do your own thing in your Shemona Esrei, and then Shema Kolenu, you say the same Talmud of Eretz Yisrael, or depending where you are. The issue is what happens if you're davening for the Amud. You're davening for the Amud, so some say in your silent Shemona Esrei you do whatever you want, or not whatever you want, but doing what you should be doing. So that is whatever you want, because you're rushing to do the right thing. And then during the Chazaras, obviously you have to follow whatever place you're in. So even if you're in the Chazaras Hashatz, you have to go ahead and and mention in the Shemona Esrei.